everyone, my name is Dayton, or you can call me as Denzel, and today I'm going to talk about the CIA engineering HIV as a bioweapon, a conspiracy theory evolution. So in this presentation, we're going to find out, is it a fact or fiction? First, I want to talk about the topic introduction of this presentation. So this idea first appeared in the early 1980s and suggests that the US government intentionally spread HIV to target different groups of nations and peoples, such as the African Americans, LGBTQ plus individuals, and also the population in Africa. Despite a lack of credible evidence, the theory gained attention through media activists and even public figures. The HIV and AIDS epidemic, which has affected millions worldwide, created a climate of fear and uncertainty that allowed such theories to spread all around the world. Next, I want to talk about the objective of this evolution. So in this presentation, we will critically analyze this claim. We will look at the historical context, explore both of their supporting and opposing argument, and ultimately determine whether there's any scientific or historical basis for this theory. So now let's move to the first part of our presentation, which is about historical context. So the first part I want to mention is for the CIA involvement in bioweapons research. As you can see on the right side, this is the picture of a prediction of CIA MK Ultra program, which involved an ethical mind control experiment during the Cold War. Specifically, to understand why this theory emerged, we need to look at the Cold War era government programs. The CIA conducted secret projects like MKU Ultra, which involved technical mind control experiments using drugs like LSD. While MKU Ultra did not include biological weapons, it contributed to public distrust of government-signed experiments. The US military did conduct bioweapon research using this time, particularly at the Fort Detrick, Maryland. Some of the research involved deadly pathogens such as the anthrax or plague. However, this program focused on fast-acting biological agents, not complex viruses like HIV, which take years to cause illness. Another key historical event was the Operation Paperclip, where the US brought former Nazi scientists to work for the military projects, including bioweapons, to further fuel suspicion that secret government research could have led to something like HIV. The second part of the historical context, which is about the emergence of HIV and AIDS. HIV was first identified in the early 1980s, when doctors notified unusual infection in gay men, drug users, and hemophiliacs. Scientists later identified HIV as a virus responsible for the AIDS. However, the government was slow to respond, partly due to the stigma and the lack of understanding about this type of virus. As the epidemic spread worldwide, many people sought explanations, especially in communities that already distrust medical institutions. This environment gave rise in conspiracy theories, including the idea of that HIV was deliberately created by the government. Here are some of the pictures at that time that you can see here. This is the picture of the 1980 AIDS awareness poster when they found out this type of virus. And another picture here is the memorial quit, and also during the time of 1980s. And last picture here is the act of protest photographer capturing acts up as a demonstration advocating for AIDS awareness and research funding in 1980s. So now let's move to our second part of our presentation, which is about the explanation of the conspiracy claim. So the conspiracy theory itself. The core idea of that this theory is that the CIA created HIV as a bioweapon. Some versions claim that it was introduced through a type of vaccines, while others suggest covert methods of infection. And talking about the goal of this action is to control certain population, specifically African Americans, LGBTQ plus individuals, and also like the African nations. Some theorists even agree that HIV and AIDS was used for population control or like the political destabilizations. And as you can see here on the right side of this slide, this is the picture of like the death caused by HIV and AIDS starting from 1980s and until like 2021. This is a global epidemic and the leading cause of death in some country by Max Roser and Hannah Ritchie. And as you can see here, all of the highest are coming from like African countries such as South Africa, Namibia, and also Zimbabwe. That's the reason why they raised the concern about was a type of virus to control the populations. And now let's talk about some of the key figures here. So this idea gained traction in African American communities partly due to the historical medical abuse, like the Tuskegee sleeveless study where the black men were untreated for this type of disease without their knowledge. This horrific experiment will last for decades, created deep distrust in government health program. In South Africa, former President Thabo Mbeki publicly questioned the link between HIV and like AIDS, though he didn't fully endorse in CIA bioweapon theory. His skepticism to policy decisions that delay effective HIV treatment in the country were a foundation of existing mistrust. This theory spread rapidly, especially like among those already suspicious of governance motives. And as you can see here, this is the picture of Tuskegee experiment by Elizabeth Nix. Now let's move to the third part of our presentation, which is about the evidence supporting the conspiracy claim. So first I want to mention about like the public figures and media spread. So basically in the 1980s, some African American activists, including members of like the Black Panther Party, speculated that HIV was introduced to harm black communities. Their suspicion wasn't baseless. They were historical precedent for like the unethical government medical experiment on like the black communities. And second is about like the misinformation spread by media outlets, especially in countries with limited access to accurate health information, sometimes promotes these like unproven theory. This contributed to believe that HIV was created virus by the government. And as you can see here in the middle of our presentation, there's a picture of the Black Panther Party National Chairman Poppy Cell the left side, and then a defense minister on the right side, standing in front of the Black Panther Party headquarters in Oakland, California. So now let's talk about like the biggest point of the evidence supporting this claim is about like the Operation Denver, a KGB disinformation campaign. One of the main reasons this theory gained popularity wasn't about like the real evidence, but because of the Operation Denver, a Soviet disinformation campaign. During the Cold War, the KGB spread the idea of that the US had created HIV as a bioweapon. The goal was to undermine America's global reputation and also like sow distrust of this country. This theory was widely spread in the Eastern Europe, Africa, and South like the developing nations. This misinformation was so effective and it continued to influence people believe even today. And here is the brochure by like photographed by Dollar Slave. And here say like USA homemade evil not imported from Africa, which showing their perspective of that this a created virus by US. So now let's talk about like the evidence against this claim. Scientific. consensus on HIV origin. Modern science overwhelmingly support that HIV originated naturally, not in the lab. Research shows that HIV evolved from SIV, semen immunodefensive virus, which infects primates. Scientists believe that HIV jumped to humans in Central Africa in the early of 20th century, likely through the hunting and consumption of chimpanzee meat. Studies of historical blood samples confirm that HIV was circulating in human population decades before the first recorded ASD cases in the 1980s. If HIV had been artificially created, we wouldn't see it in natural volume evolution pattern. And as you can see here on the right side of this slide, this is a picture adapted from the front line, which shows that the HIV is coming from like the chimpanzee meat. The scientists believe that all of these viruses are coming from the chimpanzee and also like by the action of eating those type of animal from the central of Africa. Now let's move to the second part of the evidence, which is about there's no evidence of HIV creation at the Fort Detrick. One of the most common claims is that the HIV was developed at the Fort Detrick, where the United States conducted bioweapon research. However, there's no scientific or historical event or evidence linking to the Fort Detrick to HIV, where the United States studied biological weapon. HIV does not fit any of the profile of an effective bioweapon because it spreads slowly and is not immediately, having bad health for people, making it an impractical choice for the welfare. And so, as you can see here on the left side, this is the picture of the main entrance of the Fort Detrick. So now let's talk about the last evidence of this part, which is about disinformation campaign reveal. After the Cold War, this classified document revealed that Operation Denver was a Soviet disinformation strategy, not a real US bioweapon program. This means that one of the main sources fueling this conspiracy was a propaganda, not a fact. So, as you can see here again on the left side, this is the Soviet document on this information. The reason why they want to do so is because they want to spread the bad reputation of the United States to the world. That's the reason why they this action. So now let's move to the part of evolution and conclusion of this claim. Part of the evolution when we comparing between the evidence coming from both of the side by accessing to the credibility of the theory. Well, while the historical event like MK Ultra and the Tuskegee study created legitimate distrust in the United States government, there's no credible evidence that the CIA created HIV. The strongest argument for this theory was that the KGB Operation Denver, which was later debunked. On the other hand, scientific research overwhelmingly support that HIV originated naturally from the primates. Experts from virology, epidemiology, and history all agree that HIV was not engineered in the lab. So now let's talk about the final conclusions. I believe that the claim of that the CIA created HIV as a bioweapon is not supported by scientific evidence. It's just like the root in misinformation, covert disinformation, and justify mistrust from the past government abuses. While it's understandable that some communities believe that this story spreading can actually harm the public health efforts, instead of focusing on the conspiracies, we should emphasize science-based approaches to HIV prevention, treatment, and education. Thank you so much for listening.